Prague, 1698. The rain has been falling since midnight, and the oldest clock tower in the city has stood frozen for 3 days. The clockmaster who maintains it was found unconscious at the base of the stairs the morning after it stopped. He remembers nothing, and tonight, Detective Josef Novak has received a note from someone who apparently does. Settle in, let the rain whisper across centuries old cobblestones. Let the clock tower stand frozen above the empty square, and let tonight's mystery carry you somewhere quieter than answers, somewhere older than questions, into sleep. The note had arrived at dawn, slipped beneath Joseph's apartment door while he was still sleeping. Three sentences on expensive cream paper. The clock stopped for a reason. Come alone, come at night. Bring nothing but your lantern and your patience. No signature, no seal, just those words and the particular weight of paper that cost more than Joseph earned in a week. He had read it 4 times at his kitchen table, then set it down beside his cold morning tea and sat for a long time looking at nothing in particular. His grandfather's pocket watch sat on the table beside the note, as it always did, as it had for 11 years, since the morning his grandfather pressed it into his hands and said nothing and closed his eyes and didn't open them again. Joseph picked it up. Click. The case opening smoothly. The face inside, still running, still counting, always counting. His grandfather had been an apprentice clockmaker once, long ago, before arthritis took his hands and turned them into something painful and unfamiliar. Before he became simply the old man who sat by the window and told Joseph stories about the great tower in the old town square, about its builder, about the things hidden inside its mechanisms that no modern clockmaker had ever fully understood, things that were meant to be found at the right time. Joseph had always assumed it was just a story, the kind old men told to make the world feel larger than it was. He closed the watch, set it in his coat pocket, and went to find his lantern. The square was empty when he arrived. Rain from the tower eaves landing on old cobblestones, the stones dark and gleaming, reflecting the few lamps still burning at this hour. Joseph stood at the edge of the square and looked up. The clock tower rose above everything else, its famous astronomical face glowing faintly in wet darkness, gilded hands pointing straight up, preserved in metal and paint for 3 days now. He had passed this tower 1,000 times in his life. As a child holding his grandfather's hand, the old man always slowing hair, always tilting his head back to look at the mechanism face with an expression Joseph had never quite been able to read. Joseph pulled his coat tighter, walked toward the tower door. It was unlocked. He stepped inside. The air inside the tower was cold and completely still. The smell of old rope and machine oil and bronze, always bronze is here. The whole tower breathed it, water finding its way through old stone, running down the interior wall in a thin dark line. Joseph raised his lantern. The stairs began immediately. Narrow spiral stone worn smooth in their centers by 3 centuries of climbing feet, his grandfather's feet among them. He counted automatically, a habit from years of climbing unfamiliar stairs in the dark. On the seventh step, he stopped. Something caught his lantern light. He crouched slowly, fresh candle wax on the stone, a small pale pool of it, still slightly soft at the edges. Someone had been here tonight, before him, with a candle rather than a lantern. Joseph straightened, stood very still, listening. Only the distant sound of river. Whoever had been here with their careful candle was gone now, but they had been here. He continued climbing, more carefully now. He remembered his grandfather telling him once that Vaclav always used candles inside the tower, never lanterns. Said lantern light was too harsh for thinking, too present. Candlelight let the mind wander where it needed to go. Joseph filed this away quietly and kept climbing. The mechanical room appeared at the top of the stairs, and with it the silence. The deep, unusual silence of clock that had stopped because a mechanism this size never truly rested between strikes. Its heartbeat was constant and endless patient counting. But tonight, nothing. Joseph moved his lantern slowly across the frozen mechanisms, gears of every size standing perfectly still. He checked the main escapement. No broken teeth, no snapped cables, no fallen counterweights. Everything exactly it should be, except motionless. He was about to move toward the clock face stairs when something stopped him, a movement, barely perceptible. He raised his lantern toward the base of the main shaft, one small gear, turning slowly, almost imperceptibly slowly, but moving while everything around it stood completely frozen. Joseph watched it for a full minute, one gear still counting while the entire clock held its breath around it. He traced where it connected, upward through the mechanism, toward the clock face above. Whatever this gear was still measuring, it hadn't finished yet. He moved the lantern along the stone wall beside the mechanism. Old stone, cold and damp, and then numbers, carved carefully into the wall at eye level. Not vandalism. This was deliberate work, patient and precise. A sequence of 17 numbers arranged in 3 lines. Joseph opened his notebook, copied them carefully, then stopped, his hand going completely still above the page. He had seen these numbers before, not here, at home, in the margin of an old book his grandfather had left him, written in the old man's distinctive hand. Numbers Joseph had always assumed were meaningless notation, the idle wandering of an old mind. He closed the notebook slowly and stood looking at the carved wall for a long time. His grandfather had been here, not tonight. He had stood in this exact spot and read these numbers and written them down and carried them home and written them again in the margin of a book he knew Joseph would one day inherit. Why? Joseph put the notebook back in his coat, his hand brushing the pocket watch as he did. He held it for the moment through the fabric, warm from his body heat, then climbed toward the clock face. The clock face room was open to the night on two sides, stone arches, no glass, rain coming in at a long angle. landing on the warm stone floor. Running between old cracks, Joseph stepped inside and raised his lantern toward the mechanical figures. The carved figures that emerged on the hour to strike the great bells. The third one from the left, its carved arm extended outward at an unnatural angle, pointing not at the hour markers, not at anything in the clock face itself, at a specific point on the stone wall behind the mechanism. Joseph crossed the room carefully. He pressed his palm flat against it, moved it slowly across the surface, feeling for something. A stone shifted inward, smooth, as though it had been opened many times before. A small hidden space behind it, dark and dry, and perfectly preserved from the rain. Two objects resting on the narrow stone shelf, a silver pocket watch sealed with dark wax, bearing a symbol Joseph recognized immediately. The original clockmaker's guild, Wycliffe's guild, addressed on the outside in old Czech script to whoever the clock had been waiting for. Joseph's hands were not entirely steady as he reached inside. He carried both objects to a narrow stone ledge near the arched opening. Rain hissed past just beyond. The paper inside was old but perfectly preserved, the writing careful and dense. He read slowly, translating the archaic. Wycliffe had written it in 1410, the year the tower was completed. He had built the clock to count a specific number of years, 288. A moment when the sky returned to a configuration it had last held when the city of Prague was first settled. A full circle, a completion. He had built the mechanism to mark this moment because he believed certain things deserved to be marked. The letter ended one paragraph that Joseph read 3 times. I do not know who will find this. I know only that someone will. The clock was built to ensure it. If you are reading these words, then the count is complete and the time has come for someone to carry this knowledge forward. Not the astronomical knowledge that is in the watch and can be given to the scholars. What I mean is simpler than that. Time moves in circles. What completes also begins. Whatever you have lost that brought you here tonight was not lost. It went around the circle and it is waiting for you on the other side. Set it carefully in his coat pocket. Open the silver watch, its face marked in years not hours, hands pointing to 288, side by side on the stone ledge, rain hissing past. The city far below, his grandfather had known, had stood in his room, had read the letter, had understood the circle Wycliffe described, and had spent his remaining years quietly preparing Joseph to stand here and read it too, patient and circular and completely certain, the expression of a man who knew this grandson would eventually find his way here and wanted him to know he wouldn't be alone when he did. He climbed back down the spiral stairs slowly, both watches in his coat pocket, the letter against his chest, the lantern warm in his hand. Outside, the rain had eased. He stood for a moment and looked up at the frozen hands, then began the walk home, moving through the dark city as it had always moved, indifferent to clock towers and detectives and old men who loved their grandson in circles, single lamp burning in the entrance hall, he climbed the stairs, unlocked his door, stepped inside. He sat and looked at the two watches side by side in the firelight, running together, 3 centuries between them, his grandfather's sandbag lips, and somehow the conversation, his eyes growing heavy, not from exhaustion, from completion, keeping the secret with tremendous patience, loving him carefully enough to leave him a world full of questions worth answering. Some people say goodbye with words. His grandfather had said goodbye with stories and a pocket watch and an expression by the window that had taken 11 years to read. The fire settled lower. The two watches tickled quietly on the table. Let the clock tower stand complete above the empty square, its long work finally done. You don't need to solve anything tonight. Like a man who has found what he was looking for, even though he didn't know he was looking. Time moves in circles. What completes also begins, and tonight the circle is complete.